from your vantage point, if we think from a cycle perspective, from a thematic perspective, what are some of the more interesting areas that are getting traction?
Yeah, so themes are interesting because they come in favor and they come out of favor. And by nature, themes are, they tend to be a little bit challenging to implement for some advisors because they're GICS breakers by definition. They don't fit cleanly into one given GICS sector. They tend to span multiples. Renewable energy is a great example of that, where you have technology companies, you have energy companies, you have industrials companies. If you look at disruptive technology portfolios or cybersecurity portfolios, in many cases, they just don't fit cleanly in your typical buckets as defined by GICS or IC or whatever sector framework you're implementing. And so in that way, there's been a challenge at times for investors and advisors working on their behalf to implement themes because they don't necessarily know how they fit. They don't necessarily know what percentage you should have in a diversified asset allocation framework. But to your point about the current administration, I think part of it is owed to their policy and what they're focused on. I think part of it is just the nature of some of the economic changes that and capital markets changes that we're seeing. And in many ways, the theme we're most focused on, which is in some ways a convergence of multiple themes. So that energy transition theme converges upon the AI theme, which converges upon the electrification theme, all of which we think are the biggest mega trend in investing, which is the electrification theme at a high level. You've got increasing demand from AI data centers for electricity, which is driving this upward mobility and overall electricity demand expectations and forecasts. You're also seeing increased EV adoption domestically and globally. You're seeing the push toward electrifying things like your gas stove into an induction stove, your heater in your house toward a heat pump, all of which is going to require significantly more grid infrastructure and grid investment, as well as additional electricity demand capacity or electricity generation capacity. And so the electrification of the economy, I think, is the biggest megatrend because it's a convergence of a number of different trends that are going to impact our economy over the course of the next 5 years. When you look at electricity demand growth in the United States, expected to increase dramatically depending on your forecast over the course of the next 5 years.